Hey everybody, it's Mike Eddy, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the Final Cut Pro Cookbook today, kind of walk through it and talk about what some of the chapters are about. So this is the Final Cut Pro Cookbook. Quite the effort to make. I really appreciate everyone at PACT for their work on this. It was, start with the cover, it was kind of a collaborative, creative effort. They wanted something that was not exactly Final Cut Pro, sort of representational, and they had this idea of a split screen, kind of going from, you know, production to editing, that whole process. And my daughter had the idea of, well, why don't you have the image be a cooking show? So it kind of keeps with the cooking metaphors and all that we like. So kind of a fun creative effort. Well, the Final Cut Pro Cookbook, yes, it's made of individual recipes that are maybe or maybe are not related, but they all do kind of have a flow. And so we do start with the beginning chapters, looking at the interface and you know, how Final Cut Pro is made up of, you know, one window with multiple panels. So it starts a little basic, like you probably read it's meant for intermediate Final Cut Pro users, but certainly anybody you know, beginning out can get started too, and you know, pick up from the beginning where we talk about the interface and working through that. And one of the things we do kind of get a little advanced right away is talking about workspaces and saving workspaces and being able to have a custom workspace that's a file that you can take and use on other computers. So we kind of get a little advanced right from the beginning. The other thing that we talk about in the first chapter too, which may seem a little advanced, is the precision editor, which you may not use very often, but I use it in the beginning here because it visually illustrates how the footage is put together on the timeline. So it appears as though, you know, you've got one clip next to the other. Well, where's the rest of the footage that's not shown? Well, in a sense, it's tucked underneath. If that's the edit point, that footage exists, it's just is hidden underneath and easy to manipulate in this view. From the overall interface, we start talking about then the event browser and that side panel to work with and get things organized. I would say that a good place for a young editor as an assistant editor is to understand how to organize footage. In some ways, as an independent producer, you're the assistant editor for yourself. So, you know, how do you get yourself organized to be the very best and fastest when you get to actually editing? So we talk through keywords and events, and that it's database driven, and all those aspects of the event browser. So I've marked some pages here. Even the column view. So instead of just looking at things as icons, what are the advantages of seeing things in this list view or column view and being able to move those columns and change them and get your footage organized in the best way possible for efficient editing. So once we understand the interface, now we can start editing and drop things into the timeline. And one of the things that I think is important is to understand how to adjust the appearance of the event browser, but also adjust the appearance of the timeline panel and how your footage is displayed. I think it's important to be able to quickly change the interface based on the situation in which you're editing. Are you organizing, and so the viewer window is less important and the event browser is important? Or are you working in the timeline? Maybe you're doing some editing in audio, so you need to make different adjustments in the height of your clips and things like that. Then also as part of editing, we get into some things like using the trim tool and slipping and sliding clips. What does that mean? How do you efficiently, with the fewest amount of keystrokes and mouse clicks, manipulate your footage exactly how you want it? We have a chapter on color correcting, and we talk about match color, and we talk about the difference between color correcting, making things look natural, and color grading, being to stylize something. Jump over to the chapter on effects. So we've got working with stacking effects, and in this particular case we're talking about adjustment clips, and adjustment clips being added. They almost look like a title. They're above they're connected above the timeline, primary timeline, and the adjustment clips then affect everything that's underneath, so you don't have to add an effect specifically to each and every clip. But in this part we're talking about how it's affected, and that it's goes from the bottom up, right? First your image is applied, and then the first adjustment clip, and then the second adjustment clip. In this case, a black and white adjustment clip being the last one applied changes everything to black and white. We're also working with elements, and I really like the magnetic mask, and we talk a bit about what are the different controls for that, how to use the eyedropper to add and subtract parts of the mask. And then there's even a chapter on audio. And the important thing to remember in audio, green is good, red is bad. A fundamental truth within the audio editing. And we have a section on titles, using safe areas, applying titles, and one of the little tips and tricks that we use in here is applying a facial recognition as part of a connected clip or a object, tracked object. And so we're adding text, and it can, Final Cut can recognize a face and then track to that. And text works really good, especially being offset just a little bit, so it doesn't have to track it exactly. Your eye isn't trying to see that it's exactly on point, but it's next to it and it moves along the screen with it. So that's kind of a cool effect to do with text. And then we're kind of wrapping up the book, getting a little more advanced, talking about some real-world projects, reconnecting your audio clip in order to make a kind of reusable intro and outro to a project. And lastly, then we talk about sharing files and archiving projects, and kind of wrapping things up from a editing standpoint and sort of a kind of a business production standpoint. How do you go through and save all your elements for a project? What's long-term storage? What is short-term storage? So yeah, so it's got a good progression. I like how it's laid out. So it's tips and tricks, but it's also then a progression of the interface, through organizing, editing, elements like audio, effects, the titles, and then project wrap up. So there you go. Hey everyone, that's what's involved in the Final Cut Pro Cookbook. Hope you enjoy it. Please check it out and leave a review. Let us know what you think. Thanks. Bye.